The first senior visit from the Albanese government to Israel is happening. Penny Wong has left Australia for the region. I was talking before the break to the Shadow Assistant Foreign Affairs Minister, Tasmanian Senator Claire Chandler. Appreciate your time. Let's hope we don't have that audio issue. Just wanted to sort of look at the last 100 days. It's 100 days since that Hamas attack on Israel, on civilians. Is it a bit of a concern that, first of all, 100 days in, we don't know how or when this war will end, and the number of civilian casualties, initially on the Israel side, but now piling up on the Palestinian side? Is the outcome here getting a little bit vague?
Oh, look, I don't think anyone anywhere in the world could be looking at the situation in the Middle East at the moment, Tom, and not be concerned about all of the things that you have just outlined. 100 days of war is a very long time for all of us watching. I can only imagine how long it has felt for people on the ground in Israel to be having to deal with that sort of anxiety and terror for such a long period of time. And you're right, it is too long. And what we need to be looking at, I think, very carefully here is understanding why this war is occurring and looking at the very prominent role that the Islamic Republic of Iran regime plays in stoking the violence and terror and war that we are seeing in the Middle East. In the coalition, we have for a long time been saying that the Australian government needs to be far clearer and far more impactful in how it deals with this regime.
It's always likely, or it's easy to have an entry strategy, if you like. The exit strategy always matters a lot more in any war, but that's been particularly the case in the Middle East. So you can understand why the Israeli government doesn't want Hamas to be in power. But what work has been done on what will replace Hamas? And would you fear that Palestinians in Gaza now are just going to be more radicalised?
My fear, certainly, Tom, is that we need to be looking at the root cause of funding of Hamas and funding of Hezbollah and funding of the Houthis. And like I say, we know that the country that is doing that is the Islamic Republic of Iran regime. So we in the West need to be doing everything that we can to hold that regime to account. Only then do I hope we could see a situation where we don't see these terrorist proxies of that regime spreading violence in the region.
Labor backbencher Julian Hill says Australia should look at banning so-called extremist Israeli settlers from coming to Australia. These are people that have been carrying out acts of violence on Palestinians who are living as civilians in the West Bank. Is that a fair call from him?
Look, I briefly had a look at Mr Hill's comments earlier today, and the reality is that if any individual has a documented claim of violence or proof of, that they have committed violence against them, then the government and the relevant minister already has the authority to refuse that individual entry into the country. So if Mr Hill is concerned that there are individuals within his own government who aren't taking that action very seriously, that's something he should be taking up with them.
But it's also a specific move, isn't it, to do it? I mean, the US has done that. Would you criticise what the US did in December, basically the same move?
Oh, look, all I'm saying, Tom, is that if Mr Hill is concerned that his government and his minister are not using that power appropriately, then that's something that he, as a member of that government, should be taking up with individual ministers.
But there's also a message that sends. Would that be the right message that, yes, there's been a lot of talk of condemning, obviously, what Hamas did and has done and continues to do, but also that the answer is not violence from Israeli settlers?
Oh, look, I think more broadly, as I said in my initial comments, no one is looking at the current situation in the Middle East and thinking that the violence that we're seeing there is good for humanity, is good for the people that are experiencing it. But in terms of that violence being able to come into Australia and be perpetuated here, like I say, the government has the ability to refuse entry to those individuals if it wants to.
Big day for Tasmania and Hobart. Mary Donaldson, of course, born there and now has become Queen Mary all the way over in Denmark. I'm just interested, though, does it sort of stick in your craw a bit that she only met the Prince when she'd gone off to the mainland, met him in Sydney? Is that a bit of a blow to Tassie sort of saying we're putting ourselves on the map here?
Oh, Oh, look, not at all, Tom. King Frederick and Queen Mary, as they now are, have both spent considerable amounts of time in our beautiful island state since they got married almost 20 years ago. And I actually think it's a really beautiful part of their fairy tale that they met at the Sydney Olympics, which for anyone who was around during that time has a really important place in our national story. So it certainly doesn't stick in my craw as a Tasmanian. Indeed, I'm very proud of Queen Mary and all that she's achieved, and send my heartfelt congratulations to her and her family on this very important day.
Senator Claire Chandler, appreciate your time today. Thank you.